Hey fourth graders, so in your last video we were talking about using unit fractions and multiplying unit fractions, or fractions that have a 1 as a numerator, times a whole number to get the answer, all right, or the product. This time we're going to look at basically the same thing, but not all of the fractions are going to be unit fractions. So we can have unit fractions, or we could have a fraction with a different numerator, and that still works. So let's take a look at what that would look like with our fraction strips, all right? So I'm going to use my tenths, and let's say I have, the problem is 2/10 times 3. 2/10 times 3. Well, remember, in fractions, multiplying is the same thing as it is when you're multiplying whole numbers. Multiplication is repeated addition. So this would be the same thing as 2/10 plus 2/10 plus 2/10. Right? Just like we talked about with the unit fractions. This is the same thing. You're still combining equal sized groups. So I have 2/10 plus 2/10 plus 2/10. And that tells me that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. All right? And that's all I'm doing. And so you can use your fraction strips to help you, or we can draw pictures. Let me show you how you could do this represented drawing pictures. Okay? So if I wanted to do, let's say, 2/4 times 5. 2/4 times 5. All right? So I'm going to draw 2/4 5 times. So I have 1, there's 2/4, there's another set, there's another set, there's another one. All right, so now I have 2/4 drawn 5 times. That's what that means. That's what multiplication means. That's why we even say the word times, because it means I have 2/4 5 times. Okay? Well, how much does that equal? Let me see how many fourths I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 fourths. Now I can change this into a mixed number, but I will tell you, you don't usually have to. And in fact, on FSA, there will be instances where you're having to multiply fractions in whole numbers, and you have to leave it as an improper fraction because it's one of those gridded response questions, and there's not a way to grade mixed numbers. So I don't want you to get into the habit of doing steps you don't have to. All right, again, you will not usually have to go between mixed numbers and improper fractions. If you start out with mixed numbers, you can end with mixed numbers. If you multiply and you get an improper fraction, you can leave it as an improper fraction. 10/4 is correct as long as I don't throw a whole number in front of it, okay? So this is the right answer, 10/4. All right, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. You can change it into a mixed number, but most of the time you're not going to have to. And in fact, there will be times where if you change it into a mixed number, you're going to end up with the wrong answer because there's not a way to grid a mixed number on a gridded response on FSA. All right? So just kind of throwing that out there for you guys. But again, when I have the model, it makes it easy for me to figure out what I'm trying to represent. Let's say I have this. Let's say I'm given a model. And I have to write an equation, because that's something you have to do too. Okay, let me slide it down. All right, well, what do I have? I have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So I have 1/3. How many of them do I have? 3. I have 1/3 3 times, and that's the same thing as 3/3. In this case, I could leave it as 3/3, but I know, hey, 3/3 is the same thing as 1, right? Okay. So, well, how can I do this without drawing fraction models? Let me show you. Let's look back at what we've done every time. What do you notice when you're looking at the fraction and the whole number and the answer? Here, look at the fraction, look at the whole number, look at the answer. Same thing here. Do you see something? I notice that the denominator stays the same. I started with a tenth, I ended with tenths. I started with fourths, I ended with fourths. I started with thirds, I ended with thirds. I also notice that my numerator in my answer is the numerator of the fraction times the whole number. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, and that's always going to be the case. So if I had, let's say, 7 times 2/8, and I wanted to know what the answer was, I could draw 2/8 7 times and count that out. Or I could do 7 times 2 is 14, and my fraction stays eighths. They stay the same parts. Okay, so that's another way what we can look at it. All right, now you do also see this on a number line, so I do want to show you that really quickly. All right, so when we're drawing mixed numbers and fractions on number lines, okay, we've been doing fractions on number lines. We did that a little bit with the addition and subtraction, but I haven't really done it with mixed numbers, so I want to show you. All right, we have 0, and this time I'm going to break up my number line a little bit different. 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm going to do 2 times 2/3. 2 times 2/3. So I have to split my fraction, or my in between my whole numbers, into thirds. All right, so 1/3, 2/3, and that would be 3/3. 1/3, 2/3, that would be 3/3. 1/3, 2/3, that would be 3/3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just label it. All right, this is 1, so this right here would be 1 and 1/3, 1 and 2/3, because we're counting up, right? 2, 2 and 2, or 1/3, 2 and 2/3. Do you see? Because we're counting up, so that's why we have to bring that whole number over. I can't just be like 1/3, 2/3, 1/3, 2/3, 1/3, 2/3. We have to bring that whole number over. All right, now this is showing me that I have 2/3 2 times. So here's 2/3, that's 1 time. Here's 2/3, that's 2 times. So I ended up on 1 and 2/3, or sorry, 1 and 1/3. Well, if I multiplied this out without the number line, I would have gotten 4/3, which is the same thing as 1 and 1/3. If I wanted to represent this as a fraction, or as a fraction model, I can show you that. Right? If I wanted to shade in 4 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, notice I have 1 and 1/3. Okay, so when you're doing it on the number line, you're going to end up with mixed numbers as your answers, whereas if you're doing it with just multiplying, you're going to end up with improper fractions as your answers. That's where it gets a little bit confusing. I prefer not using the number line for this. I just wanted to show you how to use the number line because I know you see that in your lessons. Honestly, my favorite way to represent this is either going to be in drawing pictures and models to represent this, or using this strategy where I know it's the whole number times the numerator, denominator stays the same. Whole number times the numerator, denominator stays the same. Whole number times the numerator, denominator stays the same. All right, it makes it really, really simple to do it that way. And if you are really not great with your multiplication facts, you can use these fraction models to help you find the answer really easily because all you're doing is counting it out. All right, and this should help you out with the rest of your lessons about this. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.